Welcome back, everyone, to the Breath and Posture channel with Bree. Today, we're going to explore a topic that deserves the deepest humility. It is the transmutation of depression, anxiety, and grief. So, in a lot of ways, when we encounter experiences where we ourselves or we can recognize somebody is going through some level of depression, anxiety, or loss, we almost feel, whether we see it or not, this kind of momentary responsibility. I think that's kind of the inclination of, I've said it in other episodes about our mirror neurons. We see somebody suffering and our brain translates it as if it's happening to ourselves. I experience a lot of the time conversations where I see the other person struggling on some level and I immediately see the mirror back into experiences I've had, and perhaps I didn't navigate them too well. I can appreciate, my own kind of rock bottom level. So this topic is definitely by no means brought to you by some expert or somebody with answers. I do want to provide a tool in the ocean of perspectives out there when it comes to transmuting things like this, but this is going to be focused on a tool. So in this first part, and I did organize it, so it's not going to just be a ramble, but in this first part, I definitely want to provide that humbling view of emotional suffering. Depression and feeling that high anxiety or loss or grief, they have a certain weight to them. And in yogic terms, we might call this the tamas, the heavy, static, unmoving quality of energy that kind of just keeps us low. We can experience feeling overwhelmed, and it can feel like life is happening almost in slow motion, like we're separated, from the world around us. And there is a book that I'm going to use kind of throughout this episode. It's a very, very old scripture, and it's called the Upanishads. So I'm going to bring in pieces as if you don't really know anything about the Upanishads, but I highly recommend that as a space in my life I have gotten a lot of fruit from that kept my journey going. So this humble view of emotional suffering, if we take a very inside look at the Upanishads, this reminds us that even in these dark states, these dense experiences, they are not our identity. And we can pull from a verse from the Isha Upanishad. The verse is, "The self is unmoving, yet moves swifter than the mind." This doesn't tell us to rush or just, hey, cheer up. Instead, it really offers this perspective that beneath our emotional weather, the storm, the clouds, the rain, whatever comes in for us, there is a part of us that remains whole and steady and deeply alive, even when our mind is tired or hurting. I'll say the verse again. "The self is unmoving, yet moves swifter than the mind." So when we approach our suffering with a level of humility, even curiosity, and especially compassion, we can allow something else inside us to begin to quietly reorganize itself, if I can just put it that way. So let's get into section 2 of this tool, this approach or perspective. And this is going to focus on the yogic view of transmutation. And I purposely used that word throughout and in the title. So the yogic philosophy, emotional states are understood as energetic patterns. Nothing is stagnant forever. So pulling back from the Katha Upanishad, this is a certain piece of the Upanishads. It talks about the inner fire of awareness that lights everything up. Awareness is the torch. It teaches that wisdom isn't about escaping darkness, but actually recognizing that awareness can exist inside this suffering, in this, perceived darkness. Awareness absolutely rests right there. Back to transmutation, it begins with witnessing the energy that we're experiencing. It's like the sexual energy episode I just did. That sensation, you guys, I can attest to it. That sensation of sexual energy can absolutely steer the ship. However, transmutation begins when we can actually just witness this energy going on. Whether it is depression, anxiety, sexual energy, whether it is the magnitude of grief and loss that I have not imagined yet to that extent. By witnessing the energy that's going on, instead of fighting or judging it, you guys, that is where transmutation, transformation begins. Another sign of when this kind of process begins of transmutation, it's when we can actually name its qualities. So I can actually identify what is happening right now. That is when we are like, wow, okay, I recognize the energy. I'm not fighting it. I'm not judging it. I see it for what it is. I see that I'm heavily depressed. I see that I'm totally in it. My anxiety is through the roof. Whatever it is, I can see it happening, and I'm not going to fight it. And then I can start to name the qualities. I can start to go in myself and start to ask the question, what are these pieces? What is really happening here? Even if I don't have an answer, even if you guys don't have an answer, the pure curiosity of the intense moment changes things. And then the last piece to this transmutation is being able to give it some direction. 100%, you guys, key, game changing. When we can direct the energy through breath, through some movement, or prayer, it changes immediately. It simply acknowledges that even the heaviest energy can be guided gently and respectfully, and be guided towards a place that nurtures it instead of depletes it or shuts it down. So let's go into the next part, because I am kind of organizing this in a purposeful order here. So how depression and anxiety and loss or grief, how it responds to action. That depression often feels like a reduction of prana, of the movement of life. But think about it for yourself. Whenever you feel that heaviness of depression, you're down. You're kind of just stuck in it. It feels like you have reduced your life force. It feels heavy. So the intention is not to force ourselves out of it, but to introduce a small little current of movement, breath even, that can just expand us a little. A walk, just go outside your door, or a stretch that tells the nervous system, I'm still right here. Despite what's going on, I am here. We need to tell ourselves that. Or else, the other story that is relentless is going to steer the ship. So then, that was an example of depression, but let's talk about anxiety. So something that is crucial with anxiety, as far as just tapping into how it all responds to action. I talked about depression and just the movement of life, specifically through our breath. Anxiety, I say grounding. So anxiety is often the opposite. Too much kind of upward moving energy. You could totally imagine when you feel anxious, it's either in your chest, in your throat, in your face is all tight, in your brain, your head hurts, it moves up, our shoulders, oh my God, neck. So ancient practices actually aim to bring this energy down into steadiness. So this is why grounding breath, intentional grounding breath, slow exhalations, connect us to the feet and the legs. And ultimately what it does is psychologically and spiritually shift the internal landscape going on. It does. We have to ground ourselves, be rooted to the ground in order to be available to what's happening. Because what happens energetically when we sink our weight down is we release all that tension, all that high blood flow. The breath calms, the joints relax downward. Even around your face, which, believe it or not, the moment we make a sour expression or we feel the anxiety creeping between our eyes or our eyebrows, jawline, these are all opportunities to drop that weight down. Let it sink. So grounding absolutely helps with anxiety relief. And then the third one of this, grief. Grief really needs us to soften and open, like allowing. Grief is sacred, you guys. And back to the Upanishads, it often speaks of the heart as both the seat of pain and the seat of awakening. Grief invites softness. It's not meant to be fixed, but actually to be honored. This is where a more modern day expression, find the silver lining, comes in. Grief teaches us. And if we fight it, it feels absolutely overpowering, overbearing. But when we honor it as if it's the greatest teacher of our lives, we soften. So transmutation in this perspective looks like allowing what is frozen to melt. And allowing whatever is tight, stuck, to finally breathe. So let's go into another section of this. And I'm trying to go through this without putting you to sleep. But like I said, you guys, man, the depression, the suicide, the anxiety, the grief, these things are increasing in this ever-changing modern age, and it requires a responsibility from each of us when we witness it, when we experience it. So anyway, I just rambled off to the side in order to justify the length. Okay, so what the Upanishads teach us about inner change. This is kind of just a graze over of the Upanishads, but like I said, absolutely one of my favorite books to open. The Upanishads. So it consistently, and if you have the chance to open it, you'll see immediately, it consistently returns to one truth in this perspective. We become what we repeatedly contemplate. We become what we repeatedly contemplate. You are what you eat. You are what you think. So not in some superficial think positive way. I'm not talking about that, even though that has its effects. But it's rather this quality of our attention. The quality of our attention, our presence, our sincerity, that actually shapes the quality of our energy inside. So back to the Upanishad, this is a verse, this is a sentence. As in your desire, so is your will. As is your will, so is your action. As is your action, so is your destiny. This is the essence of transmutation, you guys. Not pushing ourselves, not forcing change, but gently organizing our attention towards something that lifts rather than drags us deeper into a state of darkness. Gently and immediately shifting our attention towards that. Because what other moment do we have in this life that's guaranteed? The only moment is right now to shift your attention towards something that's light, towards the light. You guys, it's not on accident that things point to this. It is the solution. When we immediately change our attention towards anything, we will experience an immediate effect, whatever it might be. So think about breath. Not in some fancy sense like you need a bunch of breath exercises, and not in the sense like you need to study pranayama after this. Just breathe and watch it. Welcome it. Smile with it. Be grateful for it. This is why I talk about movement so much. Movement, whatever it may be, from a stretch to a walk, to a prayer, to a practice, to a jog. Movement immediately helps us shift our attention from X to Y, and in the process, if we choose to use our breath mindfully and allow our hearts to open up into that action, we will be transmuting X into Y. Whether we like it or not, be sincere, Be aware, breathe, and just go for it. Right this moment, choose a different action with heart. Regardless of how heavy the moment may be, just try it. And then last, a prayer. Pray, meditate, go inward. It is extremely difficult in times of deep despair. I absolutely can attest. But when we go inside ourselves with humility, with consciousness, and with the openness to receive any softening inside ourselves, wherever it may come from, you guys, that absolutely changes to the body, to the present moment. We slowly repattern the energy inside us. I hope this was a helpful episode, and like I said, it's just a drop in the ocean. My heart just wants to love those that are suffering, absolutely. And perhaps this is that outlet for myself to just put something out there. And if there is somebody you can think of that might benefit or enjoy a topic like this, by all means, please share. Thank you again for joining me at the Breath and Posture channel, and be well.